All right, we're live on Proline TV and the Our Lads Football Network. I'm Greg DePalma. Thanks for tuning in for another one of our interviews as we take a look at the Houston Texans, and that means Cole Thompson is joining us. How's it going, Cole?
It's another offseason filled with wonder of how much more improved can a team that's in the worst division in the NFL be. That's always been my mantra. That's still going to be my mantra going into 2025.
Yeah, we were kind of talking about that on some of our other shows about, making early kind of predictions and stuff, and just looking at the AFC South and going, boy, Houston's got it made right now. I don't know if they can blow at. It's
honestly going to be very impressive. It's more impressive to watch this team with how good of a defense they're going to have in 2025 blow it than it would be to see another team come out on top. Like, that's how I feel, and I think how literally everybody else that covers this division feels as well. It's not hey, can somebody step on up and compete with Houston? It's, will Houston find a way to blow it?
Well, I don't think they're capable of doing that, to tell you the truth. I think they're too talented unless there are injuries.
Yeah,
I think injuries is the one maybe measuring stick that could kind of even things out. I want to remind everybody, look at the description area for links for ourlads.com, because this is the draft review guide. This is last year's. This year's is coming up in about 3 or 4 weeks. So you can order it now. You can also wait for the PDF to come out. Anyway, this is why I like to do these interviews with Cole, so I can educate myself as best as possible, because that's what those draft review guides are about. 32 team profiles about the draft, free agency, and much more. So Cole's been awesome to do this with me for the last several years, and we're doing it again. We just did the draft guide also, of course, so that's still available. You can get that PDF form. All right, Cole. So let's start out with how you think the team did in free agency, because we talked pretty much around free agency going into the draft, but overall, now that it's pretty much over, maybe there's a little bit of a move here or there, but for the most part, how did you think they did?
For the most part, they did exactly what I thought they were going to do. I wasn't sold that they were going to be in on one of these big time free agents, because they really went after it in 2024. They went and got Danielle Hunter. They went and got Lachey. They re-signed and gave an extension to Dalton Schultz. So a lot of their money that they allocated was for the 2024 cycle, but they did make some moves that I think put them in a position where they knew what direction they wanted to go in the draft, whether it was bringing back a Sheldon Rankins, who didn't meet expectations when he was in Cincinnati, but had probably his best season when he was in Houston. D'Amico Ryans' defense, extending a Danielle Hunter for an extra year. That means that you don't have to worry about what comes with the offseason of 2025. After 2025. They brought in some guys to be depth pieces at wide receiver and defensive back. Ronald Darby being one of them. Braxton Berrios being another one of them. Justin Watson being another one of them. So the moves that they made were all about building for, what is going to be their plan going into the draft. They made the big time splash, which was the Laramie Tunsil trade, and that allowed them to pick up multiple draft picks in return, whether that be a future day 2 selection in 2026, third round pick in 2025, a couple of day 3 selections, and it allowed them to hit reset on their left tackle position, whether that be getting a cheaper option like a Cam Robinson on a 1-year, $12 million deal, or hopefully a Ersery that comes on in from Minnesota as the second round pick. Got him on a very team-friendly contract for 4 years before you got to pay him. It allowed them to use money properly on extending players that they probably can't live without. And something that's always brought up with people is, what do you do when you have a defensive-minded coach versus an offensive-minded coach? Well, an offensive-minded coach is going to want to run things his way and pay the players that fit his system. The same thing is said for D'Amico Ryans. He extended Danielle Hunter. He extended Jalen Petrie in the nickel. He made Derek Stingley Jr. after an all-pro season the highest paid cornerback in the NFL. And he got ahead of the curve, which I thought was really smart, because J.C. Horn is the only player that so far has gotten paid. You're not including a Jalen Ramsey that wants a new contract, or a Sauce Gardner that needs a new contract. So you're the highest paid cornerback, but what you really did was you set the market for what everyone else is going to make in 2026 and beyond, whether that be on the open market or with their current team. So it was a really smart move. And then again, they brought in some guys I think are some decent pieces, whether that be a Darrell Taylor as a secondary pass rusher from Chicago. EJ Speed fits the defense extremely well. CJ Gardner-Johnson was a great trade because of yeah, you gave up a day 3 pick, but you also got rid of an ineligible and really a useless offensive lineman in Kenyon Green and got one of the better safeties in the NFL who's led the league in turnovers 2 of his last 3 seasons. So that's another win in your pocket. It's going to be a top 10 defense, but it was a top 12 defense last year. The big question is, what do you do with the offensive line protecting for CJ Stroud? And the moves made, they were moves. That's really it, Greg. They weren't impressive moves. They weren't downtrodden moves. They weren't moves that made you vitriolly vomit. They were just moves. And unfortunately, when you just make moves, that's when you have to have that conversation of Chicago's doing this, Kansas City's doing this, Tennessee's doing this, Pittsburgh's spending money here, Cincinnati's willing to do this. And all these teams are doing these little things to better their roster. And you're like, yeah, we're in a good division. We should be 11-6. That should be probably the expectation.
Well, I mean, it's also winning the offseason is just, it's nice for the media and even the fans, but it's about winning in the regular season and the postseason. That's what it's all about. And this is a division that is all about Houston. So they just didn't have to mess it up, which they didn't. So now, before we turn our attention to the draft, we talked a little bit about Nick Caley before, but once again, just a little bit of what you've heard so far. It's been a couple of months since he's been hired. What have you heard so far? And is everything going okay?
Expressive has been the main word that people have brought up in the building, whether that be D'Amico, whether that be Nico Collins, CJ Stroud. Expressive, energetic, very hands-on. And I think that's a good thing right now. I'm not saying it's a negative thing, to say the least. What you want to know is how much different is this offense going to be and what positions are going to be properly utilized. Is it going to be more of a tight end role? And if it is, well, is that why you drafted Luke Lachey with a 7th-round pick over another defensive lineman? Do you believe that Brevin Jordan's going to fit in this unit? Dalton Schultz going to have a bigger role? What about Cade Stover, the second-year player out of Ohio State? His main position that he was such an emphasis on was tight end in New England, and then he was the tight ends coach along with the pass game coordinator in Los Angeles. So is that going to be a fixture of what the offense wants to be? They brought in another running back with Woody Marks from USC. That's a pass catching back. I think it's a really good complement to what you want with Joe Mixon, who reportedly is dealing with a foot injury right now, but it's not expected to hold him out for all of the regular season or even most of training camp. He's in a boot, but that's kind of like, okay, we're just going to take precautionary measurements right now. Just get healthy for week 1, and we'll call this a done deal. One of the more explosive offenses last year on the ground was Los Angeles, and it was because they had 2 exceptional running backs headlined by Kyron Williams. So learning from the Sean McVay tree on what are some plays and what are some formations that really stand tall, is that something that's going to catapult this offense into a level of where it is consistent? And I'm not saying they got to be a top 10 unit in passing or a top 5 unit in rushing to make the playoffs and be viewed as a force, but can you just show a consistent balance going into the fourth quarter? Like, are we going to continue to see, like week 10 when they played the Detroit Lions, hey, we're up by 14 and 2 passing touchdowns to Tank Dell and 1 Dalton Schultz. And then in the second quarter, we get a really good run game. And then third quarter comes around and we throw 2 interceptions. Both are inside the red zone, and it leads to droll drives. And then we're insufficient on third down to where we're punting in the fourth quarter and we're allowing this comeback to happen. I think that that's really where you want this brain and this nucleus to be for Nick Caley. It's too early to say, especially because if we haven't seen them work with this offensive line. Yeah. But it does feel like that there is a more vibrant overall demeanor when it comes to conversations that you're having with Texans players.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that for sure when we talk around training camp in the preseason and our preseason preview show interview. So let's go ahead now and get into the draft. And first of all, of course, Texans decided to trade out of the first round. Giants wanted their quarterback and they got one. Texans went up with that extra pick. We'll get into in a little bit.
Yeah.
But I got to ask you, look, I'm sure you've probably had this question asked you probably already several times, but what the hell is it with Iowa State wide receivers and the Houston Texans? Because they go and look, these are good receivers. Definitely an upgrade from Hutchinson, who was their number one receiver at the time. But this is an upgrade now, a couple of years later, to Higgins and then Noel in round 3. So, yeah, is it a coincidence, or is there just something about the way Matt Campbell coaches his wide receivers?
Okay. It's somewhat a coincidence. I get it. And I will say that I am very big on Jalen Noel, and I think that Jaden Higgins' game is going to translate to Nick Haley's offense. But let me ask you, Greg, do you know anything about Nick Caserio and where he grew up?
No, where did he grow up?
Iowa State? He grew up in Ohio. Do you know anything about where Matt Campbell grew up?
Oh, okay. There you go.
They've known each other for years. It has been a relationship based out of Ohio. And there's something about the Ohio guys that they just seem to blend really well together, whether it be Ohio State players or Nick Haley, who grew up in Canton and then went to New England and now is the offense coordinator for the Houston Texans. Like, there's something about Ohio and Nick Caserio to where he just sees a name that's connected to that state. And automatically it's like, I got to have a conversation with him. Like, you know what? Like, you live out of state and you're like, I don't know, you're in Las Vegas. And then there's like that one other random person that came from New Hampshire. And it's like, that guy has got to become my best friend because if he knows what New Hampshire culture is all about. Sure. Like that's what it is with Matt Campbell. He's an Ohio based guy, but he's also a really good coach. And there's certain things to where you look at the success of Iowa State underneath him that really stands out. He was the all-time winningest coach, I think, in program history outside of Jack Trice going into year 10. And he's the only coach in program history to have 2 10-win seasons. And this past year, they went 11-3. They had the most wins in program history in a single season. So he's a really good coach, and he's doing it with talent that usually you find in the portal or usually you find as 3 stars.
2 stars. Yeah.
And they become pretty significant fixtures in the Big 12 and really good overall prospects because of the development. So that really does help out, is that you have a relationship with a coach. You see the proof of concept by all of these guys, whether it be a Breece Hall or a Brock Purdy or a Charlie Kohler or a Will McDonald, or now you throw in Xavier Hutchinson, Jaden Higgins, David Montgomery, if you want to go back that far. You know, he was one of the very first big-time names underneath Matt Campbell. They just have the success rate of finding players who are not only really good, but they're really well equipped to handle the daily life of the NFL. And they're physically and mentally prepared to live up to the expectations of what is the daunting task of transitioning from the Saturday to the Sunday game. So I think that really helps out. And then it helps out that, again, you look at the way that this team played this past year. Houston needed 2 wide receivers. I think it was abundantly clear, knowing that Tank Dell is probably not playing in 2025. You had to get somebody that you can trust to be on the outside and somebody who can compete with Christian Kirk for multiple reps this year. And we didn't even mention Christian Kirk being brought in free agency. Yeah. I thought that was a really good move because of the way he plays his game. It's a good fit, and it's a stylistically impressive and pleasing motion for Nick Haley. So I don't have any problems with that. But you needed somebody who could be a long-term focus in the slot and somebody that would add value on special teams. The thing with Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel is they complement each other. One is known for his size and his catch radius. One is known for his route running and his speed. And so you're getting one full-fledged receiver in 2 very quality, I would say, high-end number 2 receivers. And they both last year shared the same field and got over 1,100 receiving yards. They combined for 19 total touchdowns. They combined for 163 receptions total. I mean, they were Iowa State's offense, and they knew how to separate on when, hey, 9 needs to be the number 1 focus. Okay, we're going to get the ball to 9. Hey, 13's got to be in the slot. We got to get him more involved. He's cooking up the middle of the field. All right, Jalen Noel's that option. And so a lot of people in the Texans building did not think that Noel was going to be there at pick number 79.
Sure.
They thought he was going to be gone around round 2. And so when you start talking to people, and I was talking to somebody that's close to the building, close to Caserio, the notion switched. They had 2 other players that they were kind of looking at pick number 79. And they see him fall, and they're like, if he goes one more, let's just make some phone calls and see if maybe we can move up 1 spot and get him for a 7th round pick. And nobody's moving. So they're saying, okay, we don't know if he's going to be there. And then somehow he lands in your lap. And it may feel like, hey, why are we taking 2 receivers with our first 3 picks? But when things end up just going your
Yeah.
way and it ends up working out for you, and you land a player
You have
that
to take advantage of that. Yeah.
especially a player that probably should have been a top 55 pick that goes to 79, it ends up being a steal, and it makes you look really, really smart as an organization because you also didn't move up to go get him. Like, he fell to you and you said, we noticed this talent. We noticed how well he is going to transition in our offense, and we didn't have to give up anything to land him. Like, we don't know what the other 31 teams didn't see in him, because of what we're seeing is a guy that probably should have been off the board that we're thankful fell in our lap.
Yeah, actually, it was surprising that it wasn't the opposite, where Noel wasn't the second round pick and Higgins the third round pick. I mean, that's actually how our lads graded the receivers. I know Dave Syvertson, one of our lead scouts, loves Jalen Noel. So yeah, overall now though, the receiving unit with the addition of Kirk looks really talented, even though it's a little young with Higgins and Noel. You mentioned even though Dell may not make it this season, but they add a couple of veterans as well in Watson and Berrios to give this a very deep unit too. So is this, just looking back at the last several years for the Houston Texans, is this, like, you think maybe the deepest and more talented unit you've seen at wide receiver?
Deepest, yes. Talented, no. Last year, a healthy Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, and Tank Dell probably should have been top 5 in every single receiving category. Like, all of them should have been at least with 800 receiving yards. All of them should have had probably around 65 to 75 catches. 2 of them should have been 1,000-yard receivers. But that's what we got to talk about, Greg, is that health is such a factor that we don't mention at the beginning of the year. We just look at the roster and say, okay, you're really good, you're really good, you're really good. You fit this, you fit this, you fit this. Therefore, you have to meet these expectations. And when the Texans went 10-7, yeah, their offensive line was askew and it had a lot of issues, but there was never a consistent number 1 receiver to pair with the number 2, because week 5 rolls around, Nico Collins gets hurt, and then you got to trust now Tank Dell to either be number 1 or Stephon Diggs to be number 1. And Tank Dell's a really good number 2, but I don't think he's a number 1. Stephon Diggs is getting older. You're starting to see the wear and tear build up on him. Well, then in week 8, after he has one of his better games against Indianapolis, non-contact torn ACL, he's out for the year. Then you get back a healthy Nico Collins, but Tank Dell is dealing with a little bit of an injury. Yeah. And week 15 rolls around, and then Tank Dell breaks and shatters his leg so much that he needs multiple surgeries to make sure that it doesn't end up being completely broken and he has an NFL career. So now we're turning to Xavier Hutchinson and John Mechie and Jared Wayne and insert other player that we got from the practice squad, and Deontay Johnson's in the building for a game, and then he's pissed off at the world because he didn't get enough targets. So see you later, Deontay Johnson. We don't need you on our roster anymore. Like, it was so bad that it eventually cost Houston, in my opinion, at least one regular season win to where they would have been 11-6 instead of 10-7. And probably, I think it would have benefited them and maybe made it a closer game in the AFC divisional round. I'm not saying that they would have won against Kansas City, but I think that going into that fourth quarter, Kansas City would need more than just that late touchdown to Travis Kelce to feel really confident that they were in control of that game. And I felt like that Houston had its moments despite only having one really legit wide receiver at their disposal. Yeah. So from a depth perspective, yeah, because I think that you know what you're getting in Christian Kirk. You know what you're getting in Jalen Noel. You think you know what you're getting in Jaden Higgins. And that's not a bad thing. That's actually probably a really good thing. You think that you get maybe consistent play with John Mechie as a wide receiver 5. You know Xavier Hutchinson is competing for reps. You know that Justin Watson is a big-time receiver, so he's competing for reps. And then Braxton Berrios, when you just look at him as a player in general, he's a special teams guy that probably would add some value inside the red zone as a wide receiver 5 at worst. At best. So it's like, from a depth perspective, this is a very deep class. And I think that everybody understands their role. Wide receiver 1 is Nico Collins. Wide receiver 2 is Christian Kirk. There's a drop-off between them. And then there's a drop-off between whoever is going to be number 3. And maybe it's Mechie for a year before Higgins takes control. Maybe Higgins ends up competing more so with Christian Kirk for wide receiver 2. Jalen Noel ends up competing with Christian Kirk for wide receiver 2. But there is a drop-off, and everyone understands their assignment. You're not sitting here and saying, well, if Nico Collins isn't open, that's not a problem because you got Tank Dell. If Tank Dell is double teamed, well, you got to worry about Stephon Diggs in the slot. Now it's more so like CJ's going to have to show why he is a top 10 passer going into this year, but he has weapons that are going to get better.
Oh, yeah.
And it's going to age over time.
And before we move on to the next pick, Daniel Jackson could have been drafted. Yeah, I actually like Jackson as a late round UDFA. He had a really big game against Penn State. I thought he played really well in a big game situation. So yeah, because only 2 players, I believe, UDFAs, and both actually pretty interesting.
I think
don't
it's
know if you
3, if I'm not mistaken.
on offense or total.
Or on offense, it's 2. On offense,
Wow.
it's 2.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, you got a bunch more in defense. Yeah, just the 2. We'll get to Cox a little later on. But yeah, so I don't know. Again, it's maybe too early. But even though rookie mini camp, I don't know if you heard anything about Jackson, but I guess he's got a chance to make the practice squad. So
that's all I would say.
Yeah.
Practice squad guy where if somebody gets injured and you impress, maybe you're the new Jared Wayne or you're the new Johnny Johnson. But Houston, I think, feels really good about where his wide receiver core is right now.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a tough spot for him. Okay, speaking of Minnesota players, by the way, I did give the Houston Texans an A grade.
Oh, wow. You were nicer than I was.
Yeah, I really, because there were some players here that I really liked, including Ersery. I really like Ersery, Ersery from Minnesota. Again, same situation. I thought he played really well in some big spots, including the Penn State game that showed me a lot. He's an elite run blocker. I think he's got a good upside. So yeah, getting him in the second round, I thought was really sweet for a team that needed a future left tackle. And now they've got him.
What's really interesting is that did you see the report, or I guess the video was of New England and Houston calls, and they were going to give up. Yeah, they were going to give up the pick, and everyone's like, were they going after Travian Henderson?
That's what they said. Yeah.
And it was like, from what I've gathered, they were going after Ersery.
Okay.
Like because of Jonas Salavina, the offensive lineman from Arizona, just went off the board with Miami. Miami traded up to go get him. They wanted Ersery. They thought that Ersery was worthy of a conversation at 25. And I personally would be against it. I think it would be one of the worst first-round picks. But I understand the reasoning when you're talking about Josh Simmons is coming off of a ruptured patella, and you don't know how that's going to properly heal. And you have questions about Josh Connerly when it comes to his overall size and will he transition to the NFL. Like, I understand from a who's next in line kind of conversation on offensive lineman. And Donovan Jackson's off the board at this point because he went to Minnesota at 24. Yeah, Ersery belongs in that conversation, but they were going to move up all the way to pick number 38 to take him. They ended up only giving up a future third-round pick. I think it was the third-round pick that they got in the deal with New York to be able to go land Ersery at pick number 48 with the Las Vegas Raiders, which, again, pretty good value for a guy that you're not expecting to start week 1, but you do expect him to be your hopeful franchise left tackle in place of Laremy Tunsil. His film is good. I mean, you watch his film and what he was able to accomplish as a 2-year starter at Minnesota, over 1,400 pass blocking reps, only allowed 4 pressures and 1 sack. He played for a Minnesota team that was very good at running the football the last several seasons, including last year. You have a running back in Joe Mixon that you want to be a focal point of your offense and an offensive system that is going to predicate on the run, being such an emphasis with Nick Caley. I think that's a good thing. I think the other thing that's really, really important, and D'Amico, I'm glad, got ahead of this. He said that they drafted him to play tackle. He's going to be a tackle. The development for a player, whenever we see them make them jump to the NFL, unless you know that they are not going to handle the life of being a tackle, let them start off at tackle and don't try to pigeonhole them and say, well, we're going to get them at guard so they can get reps.
Sure.
Because of the way that your footwork is and the way that your hand placement is and the way that you go about certain players and how you have to attack the inside shoulder on a defensive tackle versus the outside shoulder on a defensive end, it's going to confuse you. And then eventually when they ask you to move back to your natural position, you're going to be acting like how you went in the position you were just playing in. And nobody wins in this. Ersery doesn't win because it hurts his confidence and it hurts his overall play style. And the Texans don't win because of now you have a liability at left tackle for a guy that probably should have just been playing left tackle until it was time for him to start in place of Cam Robinson. So I like that they're leaving him at left tackle. I do think that when you look at this overall draft class for offensive linemen, it's a good class. It's not a great one.
No.
I think that Will Campbell is a guy, whether or not he plays left tackle or left guard long-term in the NFL, I think he's a better guard than he is a tackle. But you can try him at tackle. Let's figure it out. I think he is an all-pro caliber talent. I think Kelvin Banks is a Pro Bowl caliber left tackle. And then there's a drop-off between just having serviceable linemen. If Ersery can be like a Taylor Decker for the Detroit Lions,
sure,
manageable, very serviceable, very well liked, very well respected inside the locker room, doesn't allow a lot of people to get past him, keeps his quarterback upright. You don't need to have a Laramie Tunsil to be really good. I would much rather have a Taylor Decker with an all-pro guard and a future potential all Pro Bowl center than have a bunch of holy crap, you can't play guys and an all-pro tackle, because if all I'm doing is I'm getting one guy. I think Ersery's potential is in that range of the maybe Joseph Noteboom, maybe a Taylor Decker, maybe a Jake Matthews, solid overall left tackle that is going to be a leader in the locker room. And his story of how he went from being homeless in Kansas City to getting small school offers to eventually proving to PJ Fleck that he was worthy of a scholarship to becoming the Big Ten All Offensive Lineman of the Year, a two-time Big Ten All First Team All Offensive Lineman, one of the best overall pass protectors and a third-team All-American. I mean, he knows the trials of what it takes to fight through adversity, and I think that's a really smart overall move to get that guy. Do I expect him to start week one? No. But I think that's why you brought in Cam Robinson on a 1-year, $12 million deal. Was, hey, we need stability right now. We'll worry about the rest later.
And there's, even though Tunsil's gone, and that's a big loss, obviously, but still, there's a lot to like about the offseason with the offensive line. There's depth there now. I mean, there's Trent Brown, Tomlinson. I mean, you're not asking these guys to be full-time starters either. And then Eli Cox, we mentioned him. He had a very good career at Kentucky, SEC center. So what do you think about him as a UDFA? And do you think that there is that's from center, right guard, right tackle, is that all like penciled in right now? Is it just going to be a big time competition? Or do you think that what you see here on the depth chart is what you're going to see week one?
What you see on the depth chart, maybe minus Lakeland Tomlinson and Juice Scruggs, is what you will see week one when they face off against the Los Angeles Rams, unless there's an injury. But I do think that Tyus Howard is going to be playing full-time at left guard.
Sure.
I think that Blake Fisher is going to have an entire season to prove he is the future right tackle, because he was a second-round pick. And the crazy part is also, Greg, he was a second-round pick that you traded up for. So when you give up draft compensation, you kind of want them to hit a little bit faster. Like, that's why the Juice Scruggs pick is so disappointing at this moment, because a lot of people didn't think Scruggs was worthy of a second-round grade.
No.
A lot of people thought he was a day 3 talent. You traded up to get him. Like, you moved up to pick number 63, and then the very next pick was a Pro Bowl wide receiver who's been killing it in Denver, and Marvin Mims, that I was told by multiple people, Houston was down to Marvin Mims and Tank Dell. Those were the last two receivers that they were selecting between, and CJ really liked Tank Dell, so they said, all right, well, Marvin's gone. We got to take Tank. Because, like, those were the two. And so you miss on that pick when you could have traded up and you would have gotten an all-pro caliber return man. You would have gotten a Pro Bowl wide receiver and a really good wide receiver number 3 for your system. So you got to hope that Blake Fisher can actually meet those expectations, just like Ariante Ersery, but Ersery gets that bye because if he is a rookie just getting acclimated to the NFL. Besides that, that's your starting offensive lineman. Eli Cox, he was fine for Kentucky. Kentucky had a really bad year when it comes to the overall record and just the execution underneath underneath their new offensive coordinator. But still, I think the big blessing is that you're an offensive lineman on a team that needs help. I mean, it needs help and it needs stability. And I don't know if that means that Eli Cox will eventually surpass Jarrett Patterson as a starter. But if you're telling me that Austin Deckles and Zach Thomas and even Ladarius Henderson, who a lot of people in Houston love for some reason, I don't, the infatuation for this guy, dude.
Wow.
It's like, it's mind-boggling. Like Kay Adams opened up the jar because Twitter decided one time to say Ladarius Henderson's name. And ever since then, people are like, Ladarius Henderson's going to start for the Texans. I'm like, he is barely going to make the active roster. Like, that's what you got in this dude. But like, when you look at that and you're saying to yourself, okay, well, is that what we have? Eli Cox should at least compete. He was a very good run blocker for 2 seasons out in Lexington. He improved as a pass protector, I think, in his junior year, regressed mightily in his senior year, but he got to go up against quality competition when he was at the Senior Bowl. So I think that does help out when it comes to his overall trajectory. You're talking about a guy who's a depth piece that maybe will end up panning out and being something, but he's in a team that needs help on the offensive line. So it's like, it's real. Of the two to make the active roster between him and Daniel Jackson, it's Eli Cox by a country mile. Like, there is a clear separation between it just because of the position.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, let's see what he looks like in his first training camp. Let's see what he looks like in his first preseason game. It could be worse. I mean, it really could be if you're
absolutely.
It could be worse if you're the Texans.
Hey, it wasn't even a draft pick.
Yeah.
So did you say you think Tomlinson should be right now considered the starting right guard?
I don't know. I think there's the open competition. I think that Robinson is starting at left tackle. I think that Howard is starting at left guard.
That's all. That's the only thing that was really solid, right?
Yeah.
Those two spots.
I think Patterson's going to start at center.
Okay.
And I think that Fisher is going to start at right tackle.
Okay.
I think everything else when it comes to that right guard position could change.
All right.
And again, it could be Tomlinson ends up being really good, and Howard ends up being really good, and Scruggs ends up being really good, and Blake Fisher's the odd man out. So then Tomlinson moves to left guard, Howard moves to right tackle, and you leave Juice Scruggs at right guard. But like, as of right now, the one position is Juice Scruggs, Lakeland Tomlinson, Ed Ingram. Who is going to be that starting right guard week 1 against Los Angeles? That, I think, is the mystery.
And by the way, they're going to stick Ersery and keep him at left. He's not going to be in on the right tackle spot.
Not right now. Trent Brown is going to be on the right side when he's fully healthy. And remember, he's coming off of a season-ending injury. So you don't
What's his
know
status?
We don't really know right now.
Okay.
I think that we'll get a better gauge next week when camp breaks and we see the voluntary players out there. I think it'll be a little bit easier to figure out where he is progressively and when he will be back. If he's out there at practice, it's a pretty good sign that he'll be ready for week 1. If he's not, it could just be that he's a veteran that's missing voluntary camp. I mean, like we'll know more when it comes to mandatory camp in June.
Okay. Let's now talk about the pick. I believe this was the pick that they eventually traded up anyway from this. This was the Giants' extra third rounder to get Jalen Smith and to get him in the third round. And Smith can play a variety of positions. So do you know already what their plan is for Jalen Smith?
He's probably going to be a nickel defender right now. They don't think that he'll play on the outside. They don't think that his body is big enough on the outside. It was interesting. I actually asked Amico when they drafted him, you went after Kalen Bullock, who was a multi-purpose defensive back at USC too. And did you want to try him out at corner or were you going to try him out at safety? And they said, well, we don't want to play him in the nickel. We think that he's probably best suited at safety, but maybe we'll give him some reps at corner. And it was kind of the same feel with Jalen Smith, but instead of corner, it was safety. It was, hey, we're going to try him out in the nickel, and then we're going to try him out at maybe safety to go ahead and get some reps behind a CJ Gardner-Johnson and behind Bullock. But he's probably going to be a nickel player. They expect him to be a day one contributor on special teams, which again, are you drafting a third-round pick to be a special teams talent when you need help on the defensive line, when you need help at linebacker, when you need help at tight end? Is that really how you want to use your pick? I'm not a GM, so I'm not going to sit here and argue with you on this one.
Yeah, this was the questionable pick out of the draft for me. To pick him in round 3. Yeah.
If you and here's the thing: if everyone's saying that he's going to be available in round 4, you have the pick at the start of round 4. Why not just use the pick at the start of round 4 to take him?
And you traded up 2 spots to get him.
Yeah. Like that's the thing is that you could have gotten him still in round 3. You could have gotten him in round 4 if you wanted to, but you moved up to get him. Why? Like what was the reasoning behind it? But they love him as a tackler. They think he can make plays when it comes to open field plays on the football. They like his speed. They like his overall upside as a special teams standout. They lost Chris Boyd this offseason, so that's a name that you got to remember that such a big influence on the special teams. This really does feel like a Frank Ross pick. Like, hey, let me get me a gunner that is going to make a lot of plays on the outside.
Okay, well, that makes a little bit more sense then. Not that I approved it, but okay, let's stay in the defensive backfield with Jalen Reed. And I get to see Jalen Reed a lot this past year doing Penn State games, post games, and I really like Jalen Reed. I like the fact Yeah, getting him in the 6th round, especially, I think he's got great instincts. I think he's a really good player that can go either. I prefer him in the box because I think he could be a little bit more of a difference maker there, but he's also more than capable of being a deep safety. But where do you think they have plans for Jalen Reed?
He'll be in the box, I think, a little bit more when they run a lot of quarters. He'll be in that 8 to 12 range. We asked him when he got drafted, who was a player that you modeled your game after, and he says, I love watching CJ Gardner-Johnson. Just the way that he hits, the way that he carries himself, his demeanor, his poise, his mentality, and the way he makes plays on the football. So you look at your depth chart, who's he backing up? You see it.
Yeah.
It's gonna be Jalen Reed. It's not gonna be Kalen Bullock. They're gonna have him. I think if anything, you'll see if you were to make a switch, in my opinion, it probably would be Jalen Reed behind CJ Gardner-Johnson and Jimmy Ward behind Kalen Bullock, personally. But
okay,
that's neither here nor there.
That's all right. That's helpful.
Where they are, but he is a hitter. Like, the thing that you want him for is his physicality, his instincts, his identity to make plays on the football, make plays on the football player. Read and reaction time, not afraid to go ahead and deliver the shoulder when it comes to run support. I think that he is limited in coverage. Limited is not a bad thing. There is always a role for a 6th round pick who can be something in coverage. And when that role for you maybe is, hey, I'm going to attack the ball carrier, I'm going to go one-on-one against tight ends, that's a role. And eventually that could carve out some significant playing time for you, the way they did for Bullock last year, the way they did for Laster last year, the way they did for a Christian Harris or a Henry To'oTo'o before. They had these niche roles that said, hey, we need you out here for this specific play. Can you do this? Yep. Automatically under speed, understood the assignment, and continue to move. Like, that might be what Jalen Reed is for his rookie season.
I have to also ask you about because there were 2 UDFAs here in the secondary. The one that sticks out to me is Huzzy, because he had obviously that great FCS career, first team FCS All-American, freshman All-American, good punt returner, plays with North Carolina. Statistically, the production is there. So I know he's not a very big kid. I get that. That's probably why he is where he is. But still, I think a kid like that could make the team, or at least, be on the practice squad and then make the team later in the season.
You're looking at guys at this point, say, okay, let's go through. Miles Bryant, Elijah Huzzy, Russ Yeast, D'Angelo Ross, Keedron Killian, Casey Osai, Jackson Woodward. I'd even throw Nick Neum in that list. I'd probably throw Jamal Hill in that list. I'd probably throw, maybe if you really want to, Ronald Darby in that list. All of those guys are fighting for who can be that special team standout that is going to be a 53-man player. Like that's what it comes down to for a guy like Huzzy.
Sure.
And it's unfair, and maybe you think that his overall play can transition to the NFL faster, but right now, he is just trying to make the active 53.
Yeah.
And if you can't make the active 53, that's totally fine. What's the next best plan? Making the practice squad, or better yet, making the active 53, knowing that, say, like a Ronald Darby is going to clear through waivers and he's going to be back on the practice squad. Eventually, you'll just be active for that one game. Then people will forget about you. Then you're released. Then you're put on waivers. Nobody claims you. Then you're on the practice squad and you got to stop the rest of the year. Because we see that all the time. Like we see it all the time. Like, one guy that they know, hey, we don't want to lose him, but we don't think that he is good enough to be an active player. But we could afford to lose this guy and bring him back on the practice squad. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep you on the active roster. You're going to play week 1. Then we're going to release you. What we're going to do is we're going to sign you to the practice squad the second that you clear waivers. And then you're a part of our team still. This is just the best way to guarantee that you're a part of our long-term future in some capacity. That's what I think a guy like Elijah Huzzy can be. But all of them are fighting for that spot on, hey, can I be that special team standout? Like, do you remember AJ Boye when he was coming out of Central Florida? It's not Elijah Huzzy, but what it is it's kind of that same feel. Make a name for yourself as a practice squad player. Make a name for yourself as a special teamer. Make a name for yourself as a rotational cornerback. Make a name for yourself as a starting quarterback. Go get paid a bucket load of money by Jacksonville because they don't know what they're doing down in Duval County. Like that's what the life of a guy such as an Elijah Huzzy is going to be.
Okay. Let's stay on defense to wrap up before we go to the rest of the offensive picks in the draft, because Key Hamilton out of Rutgers, me being a Rutgers guy, know very much about Hamilton. And I think Hamilton is, even though he's a 7th-round draft pick, I think he's going to be a very good contributor for the Texans in their rotation. I think he's going to be around for a long time. So I think to get him in the 7th round, which is where he was, suspected to go, I think it was a nice add-on.
That was the best pick of day 3. Personally, like I thought far and away it was the best pick of day 3 because it addressed 3 main things. Number 1, somebody that can play the run. Number 2, an interior defensive lineman. And number 3, a position of need. You didn't need another running back. You wanted another running back. You didn't need another safety. You wanted another safety. You didn't need a Jalen Smith. You wanted a Jalen Smith. You didn't even need Luke Lachey. Lachey may end up being somebody that adds value as a blocker, but you didn't need a Luke Lachey. You needed a young piece to your defensive line that you think may end up having some upside to when a Tim Settle, a Sheldon Rankins, a Danico Autry, a Kurt Hinish, a Mario Edwards Jr., a Foley Fotokoski, they all walk in free agency because if they had a really good season and they want to get paid and they want to be properly compensated, you have somebody that you can say, maybe not a starter, but he played 15% of defensive snaps last year. Now we can bump that up to 35 and let's see what we got. I think that's why it makes so much sense. I thought it was a really good player. Experience is something that you can't be taught. You can only learn it over time. He's going to be one of the more experienced defensive linemen. I mean, he had, 40 career starts or 40 career games and 38 career starts during his 3 seasons out in Piscataway. So it's like, there's a lot to like about just the experience factor of, hey, you know what it's like to be a starter. You know what it's like to go through the daily doses of playing in the Big Ten. Sign it up, come on down to Houston, go impress D'Amico Ryans.
Before we leave the defensive side, I just want to also add the 2 guys that were UDFAs in Tafuna and Woodard, because Woodard had a very good career in the last couple of years at UNLV. I mean, big-time production, and Tafuna actually played pretty well from what I hear at the All-Star game tune-up. But him being a UDFA is pretty much where he belongs. But Woodard, I'm not surprised he wasn't drafted. But again, highly productive college player. Have you heard anything about either of those kids, or even Asai, who is the other UDFA we haven't talked about?
Not really. I mean, unfortunately, there's not really much to go off of right now. So
too early.
I wish I could say something, but unfortunately, right now there's not.
All right, let's move on over to the offensive side for the remaining picks, and starting with Woody Marks, who had a big season last season in the Lincoln Riley. Of course, everybody talks about his production as a receiver. Why did Houston target Woody Marks?
The thing with the Nick Haley offense is you want a pass catcher out of the backfield, like that security blanket that can help you win your one-on-one battles. And so to me, that's what this is you're getting yourself a very qualified pass catcher who is going to take pressure off of CJ Stroud to connect downfield. I mean, this is a guy that has over 230 receptions during his college career at Mississippi State and at USC. So he's going to add value as a 3rd down runner, but you really brought him in to be the pass catching weapon. And there's something about those offenses that have been more high profile and made an impact on going deeper to the postseason. They usually have that element out of the backfield that can move the chains. And it's another thing that defense coordinators have to worry about. And I think that's what Woody Marks brings. I wasn't a fan of the pick because if you gave up a 3rd round pick in 2026 to land him, but from the stylistic standpoint, there's nobody who fits the Texans offense better going into this upcoming fall than Woody Marks. From a standpoint of simply, he is going to live up to the expectations of what we expect. Woody Marks fits the bill. 100%, no questions asked.
Okay. You mentioned Lachey, and he's going to add depth to the tight end room.
He'll be a blocker. I mean, like if anything, if he ends up being anything more than just a guy that adds value as a blocking tight end in the red zone, maybe gets a few touchdowns here and there, you're cool with it. But they brought him in to be a blocker. I mean, you look at Cade Stover, you hope that he improves. Brevin Jordan is a receiving threat, and Dalton Schultz, who the hell knows what he is at this point.
Okay. And then last pick was Graham Mertz. And I got to tell you, with Mertz, very interesting because I remember the first couple of years, all I heard as being a Big Ten guy was, oh, Graham Mertz, he's so awesome. You watch. We're looking out for Wisconsin. Graham Mertz, this guy's great. And then every year he wasn't great. And then he goes to Florida, and I kind of figured, all right, well, I don't know what they're doing. And then he actually blossomed into a really good quarterback, a very accurate quarterback. I love the way he throws the ball on the run. I mean, he is really, he does it so well, and he's highly productive in that area. So I know he was injured. A little bit surprised he was actually drafted, but I this is partly why, some of the picks later on I actually like, because I like Mertz. I actually think Mertz could be a really good number 2 quarterback down the road. What did you think about the pick?
So there's a running joke that I have with a couple of friends out in Gainesville because they asked me about him and what I thought. And I said he was mashed potatoes. And why I called him mashed potatoes. Nobody complains if you have mashed potatoes as a side dish.
No.
Like in college, you could have had worse than Graham Mertz. Like there were quarterbacks out there that you're looking at and saying, well, maybe I get that. Like maybe I get those green beans, those Cajun green beans, or maybe I get a macaroni and cheese casserole, and that's Talon Green, or maybe I get the Brussels sprouts, the spicy Brussels sprouts, and I love Brussels sprouts, and that's Nico Iamaliava. But nobody hates mashed potatoes. Nobody hates a guy that can end up giving you a completion percentage of 72%, moving the football, not putting it in harm's way, having the highest touchdown to interception ratio because he never has a turnover when he's at Florida. But unfortunately, he's coming off of an injury. Yeah. Like that's the negative right now. Like, okay, maybe you added too much butter to the potatoes, and now it's a soup kind of feel. And it is actually that fluffiness that you love when you're eating mashed potatoes from mom and pop's house when you're growing up, or it's doused too much in gravy, and like all you're getting is the gravy and no potato. Like that's an ACL injury. I think that he is a very solid backup quarterback that you hope never has to play and never will see action in an actual NFL game. But again, it's mashed potatoes. Could have worse. You could have all these people that are sucked upside and have all this potential and flash, but hell, their arm mechanic is just a little bit too far wonky to the outside, and so their release point leads to interceptions. This guy is a little bit too forceful when it comes to his reads, and he feels under pressure too much. So it's like we got those candied yams, but those marshmallows, they're burnt on top. It's like, not too much. It's like Graham Mertz is not going to put the ball in harm's way. He's going to know his assignment. He is a pocket passer. He's not going to try and take off on a run. He's going to make smart decisions in the pocket. Hopefully, I can only say that when he is at practice and never in a live game. Like, that's what it is.
Well, is this a pick at all because of anything to do with Davis Mills in the next year or two? Is there any concern with him moving on, or why did they make the pick?
There's not a concern with him moving on, but like number one, you need a QB3 because you carried 3 last year. Technically, like you didn't, but you did. You didn't cut Case Keenum because you have too much respect for him and what he means to the city of Houston. But you would have probably carried 3 quarterbacks last year, and Keenum would have been fighting for that QB2 role, like we saw in 2023. And Mills is going into a contract year. We signed the 1-year extension last year to be the backup, and I think that he likes Houston, but you never know. I mean, one bad injury. You're one bad injury away from somebody calling you and saying, what do you want from Mills? Like, he started multiple games. He's been good enough in a terrible situation to put up decent numbers. I mean, because he was. Like, from a standpoint of backup quarterbacks in the NFL, Houston, I would say, probably has a top 10 backup. Because if you know what you're getting in Mills, and Mills is a really solid player. He's not elite by any means. He's not terrible by any means. He's really, really solid. He can get you 15 starts in a season, and you won't wow teams and go to the playoffs, but you'll be good enough to stay in that 7-10, 8-9 range with the right supporting cast around you. And so somebody is going to probably take notice of that this offseason and pay him a little bit more than what he's worth. And you need to have a backup plan. Maybe worse with Graham Mertz.
Okay. I'm going to wrap up with the schedule. So it kicks off on the road at the LA Rams. Week 1. What did you think about the schedule?
The schedule's crap. Like, I mean, it is because
the schedule's crap in what way?
Crap. Well, like every schedule's crap, dude. Because like you can't predict injuries. You can't predict. when you're playing an opponent, what their roster is. You can't predict.
Oh, yeah, no. We're not predicting wins and losses here. That's for sure.
Houston's on several primetime games. They got the game in week 2. Once again, this time it's against Tampa Bay on Monday Night Football.
Okay.
They got the Thursday Night Football game against the Buffalo Bills in late November. They got it's the ESPN Plus online, but not online against Seattle. It's going to be a primetime game, but it's not a primetime game because you have to have ESPN Plus to watch it. Yeah, it's a 9 p.m. kickoff. People are going to be interested in that one coming off a bye week. That's going to do wonders for your brain and your mental capacity.
Early bye week. Okay.
Yeah. So, and that's the other thing is that, when do you want the bye week? Because people last year, Houston was so beaten and bruised because they were the very last team to get a bye. They were in week 14 to get a bye. Well, now you get it in week 6. Late. So it's did you get it too early in the year? And then you have some really tough games afterwards, like Buffalo. You got to play Indianapolis twice. You got to play Arizona, that I think is going to be better. You got to play against Los Angeles at the end of the year. You got Kansas City. Who knows what Las Vegas is going to be like? Did the schedule hurt you in any way? The way that I view Houston with this schedule release is the exact same way I viewed Houston before the schedule release. This is a 10-7, 11-6 roster that should win the AFC South, but honestly is probably nothing more than a 4 seed. They will host a playoff game against the 5 seed wildcard team. Depending on who that wildcard team is, they'll beat the snot out of them because they've done it 2 years in a row with CJ Stroud. Yeah. They'll play the number 1 seed in their backyard. It'll be a close first half. They'll blow it in the second half. That's Houston.
Wow, that's pretty optimistic about the season already, huh?
But that's the thing is that it's so negative, but it's not. It's the reality of what Houston is as a program. I want you to close your eyes and you look at every team in the AFC that is considered competitive. Are you better than Kansas City? No, you are not. Are you better than Buffalo? No, you are not. Are you better than Baltimore? No, you are not. So what does that automatically make you? The team that is the highest ranked in your division. So the 4 seed. And you're probably not even the 4 seed. You're probably more so the 5 or 6 seed. But because you play in an easy division and the rule wasn't passed right now to where we're going to get rid of seedings based off of wins and losses, it's still going to be division winners. You're going to host a playoff game. That's where Houston is going into this season. And it's sad and it's depressing because if you want to say we're going to be 12-5 and we're going to host 2 playoff games and Buffalo doesn't stand a chance against us and Kansas City can laugh their ass back to Arrowhead with the Trail of Tears behind them. It's you can make those jokes, but it's they're still better than you in every single capacity outside of maybe a few minor spots.
But isn't this about? And again, I'm not saying I'm making these proclamations or anything like that, but isn't this about? Well, we've got a young top quarterback that has to now take that next step. I mean, he's a quarterback in the NFL. If you're going to win and be a championship team, you need a championship quarterback. So do you, and then I take a look at this team and I say, well, they got superstars on it. Again, talent type guys, Nico Collins. Could CJ Stroud be that guy? Will Anderson, Derek Stingley. Not a lot of teams have 4 or 5 guys that you can say could be classified as superstar talent.
No, they're all great players. They are great.
So can't they elevate themselves this year into being even more than that?
Scroll up on the depth chart.
Yeah, I don't want to look at the offensive line, but
I want you to look at those 5 guys. I want you to look at those 5 guys right there. Are those 5 guys better than the 5 guys in Orchard Park? No, they are not.
No.
Are they better than the 5 guys in Baltimore? No, they are not.
That's an issue. Yeah.
Are they better than the 5 guys in Kansas City?
No.
You can make an argument.
You could, but no, not really.
But no. Are they better than the 5 guys in Denver? No, they are not.
No.
Better than the 5 guys in Los Angeles? No, they are not. So you can talk about all of the other things, the wide receivers, the running backs, the defensive linemen, the cornerbacks, the quarterback play. And I think that CJ Stroud, and I'm not sure who you're going to have on for Washington, but please, Washington fans, if you watch this video, temper your freaking expectations for Jaden Daniels and don't make a CJ Stroud 2.0 comparison, because if you're going to be let down the way that most Texans fans were let down last year, he could have a sophomore slump. he could end up having an underwhelming performance, and you still go to the playoffs, but it's not that same capacity. I think CJ Stroud can be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL this year. I think he could be a top 8 quarterback in the NFL this year. But nothing I say matters. Not a damn thing that comes out of my mouth or your mouth or anybody on NFL Network's mouth or ESPN's mouth or wherever you go ahead and get your podcast listening system's mouth. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter if the 5 guys protecting your quarterback don't protect your quarterback. Because Josh Allen won an MVP because he had protection up front. You had enough protection to survive against Buffalo's defensive line in Kansas City. And then when you played against a real big boy defensive line, you got your ass whooped in New Orleans. Baltimore had a good offensive line, so much so that they were able to go toe-to-toe with anybody. And if not for a drop by Mark Andrews, maybe we're talking about the Ravens playing in the Super Bowl against the Eagles over the Kansas City Chiefs playing in the Super Bowl. If you don't have an offensive line, you don't have a shot of winning a Super Bowl. You don't. And so this offensive line right now is going to be the reason why, once again, Houston does not make it past the divisional round.
Yeah, you don't need to have nobody's saying that you have to have one of the top 10 offensive lines in the game to win a Super Bowl. If you have a lot of other really good elements to your team, which Houston has, they just have to have an average offensive line. And they don't even have that. That is the problem. I admit that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's where I'm at right now is that
I remember Pittsburgh when they won that Super Bowl, when they beat Arizona that year, their offensive line was about the worst offensive line for a Super Bowl champ I remember. So it can happen, but again, they had superstar players on the team, and the offensive line was actually better than this one. So,
but also you had one fluke play that decided that game with the 98-yard.
They did have that, yes.
James Harrison. So like Harrison, if Harrison's touchdown doesn't count, Arizona walks away a champion. Like
sure.
A fluke play is the reason why they won that game.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But most teams, you look at it. Okay, go back and look at almost every single Super Bowl in the last 20 years. The team with the better offensive line usually wins. Oh, yeah,
sure. And look, we don't even have to say Super Bowl this year, but they've got it. I don't understand. I admit, I don't understand this offensive line configuration
Greg,
with all these draft picks that they had too. I don't understand it. So.
Look at this offensive line. How many do you think will be here in 4 years?
Those 5 guys,
just nobody. The entire offensive line.
Ersery, maybe only one.
That's my thought. Like I'm not high on Blake Fisher.
Yeah,
I'm not.
That's the one that may be able to make it. Yeah.
So when you say the guy we just drafted after having 4 years to build a team, and you don't want to make any changes to your scouting department, Nick Caserio, you don't have an offensive line. Like Philly built their line. Look at Philly and Detroit are 2 beautiful exampents on how to do things because of Taylor Decker, Penei Sewell, Frank Ragnow, not Jonah Jackson, Graham Glasgow. I forget who the other guy is.
They got Mahogany in now.
They're all homegrown talent.
Yeah.
Philadelphia, outside of Mekhi Becton last year, every single player was homegrown. You look at New Orleans when they won Super Bowls or when they were competitive. Every single player was homegrown. You don't win in free agency with offensive line. You win by building from within, and then right before they end up breaking out, you sign them to a big-time deal, and it ends up becoming a very smart, cash-friendly move for you. That's what it is. The teams that build their offensive lines, like New Orleans, I remember how many people were like, how did we not go get Shedeur Sanders? I'm like, you got an offensive tackle that's going to be there for the next 10 to 15 years if fully healthy. Shut up. Like, people hate offensive linemen because they're not sexy picks. But the ones that end up... Quentin Nelson has been one of the best picks in the last 20 years of an NFL draft. Absolutely. But he was a guard that went 6th overall. You shut your whore mouth when you say things like that. I don't want to listen to you. Because if that was the best player and you got him 6th overall, how do you think that that's possible?
Well, that's actually why I have more enthusiasm about, say, my terrible team, the Jets, than ever before, is because they've actually done it right with the offensive line. That 2 first-round draft picks back-to-back years. They've got a center who they drafted in the second round. They've got Vera Tucker, who they drafted in the first round a couple of years ago. I mean, so
like Jets fans are so miserable because it's like we could have gotten Tyler Warren. It's like,
yeah, that's what they're more
right
interested in.
tackle.
Yeah.
Like you got 2 guys in back-to-back drafts that are actually bookends for you.
Yes.
You're in a good spot. Like, calm down. It doesn't always have to be this way.
And Houston did try to draft from within. The problem is their scouting with these 3 here is the big problem. That's it. Now I don't mind Patterson because he's the 6th round, but Fisher and Scruggs are 2 second-round draft picks that are going to haunt this franchise if they don't correct it. All right. Anyway, I know you got to run. I just want to remind everybody, we're going to have links in the description of how you can check out everything Cole Thompson. And we'll be back, of course, to talk about the Houston Texans right around training camp with Cole. Looking forward to that. Cole, what are you up to right now? Because you have a lot more going on besides Houston Texans.
Check out my great work at SECUnfiltered.com, my great work on YouTube at SEC Unfiltered, everything at the Texans Wire and at Mr. Cole Thompson. You can also listen to me on the A-Team, which airs at 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. daily on Sports Talk 790.
Cole, appreciate it. I'll talk to you in a couple of months.
Thanks, man.
Okay, we're out of here finally. So, wait, I already did that. Yes, I